All right, I'm going to send you a couple of different videos here about the homework questions. Okay, so the first one's going to be, I'll probably say this in the title, problems 17, 27, and 33, because they're all doing kind of factoring. So this is problem 17. So just make sure, again, that that's up there. Yep, okay, so problem 17. We're going to factor in all of these questions. So factor is the box and the diamond. So problem 17. Solve the following quadratics by factoring using the zero product property. Be sure to check your answers. So here's A. X squared minus 13x plus 42. So this is what we did for the previous chapter. So I do the box and diamond stuff. I put my x squared, bottom left, I put the 42 in the top right, and I multiply those. So I get positive 42x squared. Okay? Then the middle of the diamond, or the bottom of the diamond, is the middle number, negative 13x. Make sure you write down if it's a negative. A lot of people miss that. Okay? So things that multiply to 42 could be 21 and 2, but 7 and 6 are going to be some good things. And now I'm trying to make them negative 13 when I add them together, so they both are going to need to be negative numbers. Okay? If one of them's negative and one's positive, you'll get a negative 42 up here, so that doesn't work. So these are the numbers that are going to work for us. Negative 7x, negative 6x, I put them back in the box, wherever you want of those two sides. Look what they have in common, 7x, 6, and I'm going to put a negative, I'm going to put the negatives with the regular number. We don't want to have negatives with the x's usually. We would rather have it with the other number. So if I check, negative 7 times x, that works. Negative 7 times negative 6, that works. So I have these as my parentheses, and then I'm going to set them equal to 0. So each part, this could be 0, or this part could be 0. So x minus 7 equals 0, I'll get positive 7, and then x equals positive 6. So those are my two solutions for part A. Let's look at let's do part C as well. Hopefully I'm going to put that up here and see if you can see that, because this one is missing a number. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so this one we're going to factor again and use the zero product property. So I want to look at what they have in common first. It says, it doesn't say to factor completely, but I always want to look for things they have in common first to make it easier. So they both, 2 and 10, can both be divided by a 2, and they both have at least one x in them. All right, so I'm going to factor out a 2x. So I'm going to divide my numbers by 2 and take away an x from each thing. So 2 divided by 2 would give me a 1. X squared, take away an x, leaves me with an x only. Negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. If I have an x and I take one away, there aren't any left. So now I'm just here. I'm going to keep factoring this inside the parentheses part if there's an x squared in there. If there's not, like this one does not have one, I'm going to be done factoring. So now I'm going to set this part equal to 0 and this part equal to 0. So 2x equals 0, x minus 5 equals 0. So my two answers, I divide this by 2, I'll get x equals 0. If I add 5, I'll get x equals 5. So those are my two answers there. Okay. You could do this with the generic rectangle. I'll show you how you would set that up if you didn't factor something out first. I put the 2x squared down here, and my constant term, the number with no x's, goes up here. So I'd have a 0. So I have to multiply it, and I have a 0x squared up here. Middle number is minus 10x. Things that multiply to 0 and 10 add to negative 10. Just 1 0, 1's the other number. Okay. And remember we said if you have a column or a row that's zeros, just forget about it, just cross it out, okay? So then I'm gonna look what they have in common. This has a 2 and an x, and I get the same thing, and I'd set each of those equal to 0, okay? So I'm hoping that'll help you on problem 17. Problem number 27 is doing the same exact thing, okay? So you're gonna do the same thing. What'll happen on problem C of number 27, let's erase this. Problem C of 27 is you have to set it equal to 0 first. Problem C says 3x squared minus 2x equals 5. Well, I want this to equal 0 before I can do any factoring, any quadratic formula, whatever you're doing. So minus 5 on both sides. So that just moves it over. Okay, so then I'm going to do the box and the diamond with this. I'd have my 3x squared in the bottom left corner, my minus 5 in the top right. Here, and multiply that together, I get negative 15x squared. The bottom of the diamond is from the middle, so negative 2x. Things that multiply to 15 could be 5 and 3. And I'm trying to make them add to negative 2, so I'm going to make this be a negative number. Okay, stick those back in the box. Find what they have in common. This doesn't look like they have anything in common, either of these directions, so I'm going to say a 1. This one has an x at least, so that's good. This sideways has a 3 and an x. This has a negative 5. So again, I'm going to set this equal to 0 and this equal to 0. Okay, so I'll have 3x minus 5 equals 0. If I solve that, I add 5 to both sides and divide it by 3. So I get 5/3 is one of your answers. And if you set x plus 1 equal to 0, you get negative 1. Okay, so I sent you the answer, so hopefully you can check that. And then also number 33. Okay, number 33, I want you to factor out what they have in common first, which was kind of what I mentioned about this one. Okay, factor out a 2x first. Wish this board was a little cleaner. Okay, so let's look at 33. Let's look at 33c. 933c. Okay, so that has 4x to the third plus 10x squared minus 24x. Just make sure this is still recording. All right, we're doing good. All right, so I'm going to factor out what they have in common first. The directions say factor completely, which means if there's something that they have in common, take that out first so you have smaller numbers. So I can divide all of these numbers by a 2. So I'm going to divide them all by a 2. And they all have at least one x, so I'm going to take out an x. So just like we did in the other problem, I'm going to divide the numbers by 2 and take away an x from everything. So 4 divided by 2 will be a 2. X to the third, take away an x is x squared. 10 divided by 2 is a 5. Take away an x from an x squared is just an x. Negative 24 divided by 2 is negative 12. Take away an x from an x, there's no x's left. Okay? So now under here, there is an x squared left. This term is an x squared. So I have to factor some more. I have to use the box and the diamond with only this part in the parentheses. Okay? So I'm going to put my 2x squared here, my end number minus 12, multiply them together, I'll get negative 24x squared. Okay? I put my positive 5x, we're still only using the parentheses step, forget the 2x's even there. Okay? 5x down at the bottom. Things that multiply to 24 could be an 8 and a 3. And I want to get positive 5, so I'm going to make this a negative 3. Okay? Negative 3x. Put those back in the box, wherever you want. I'm going to put negative 3x up here and an 8x down here. Wait, this marker's pretty bad. I'll get a new one for the next video. So then I'm going to find what they have in common. Let's look up and down. They just really have an x in common, 1x. This way I can divide them both by a 4, 8 and 12. Okay? Sideways, 2x. And then this other sideways is negative 3. Now, this question just wants you to factor completely. It does not want you to solve. So you're going to put our factors, which are these things here, like we normally put them in parentheses, and this guy that we factored out to start with. So I have a 2x from up here, and then in parentheses I have these two things. All right, 2x minus 3, and then x plus 4. And then I stop, because it just wants you to factor. If it wanted you to solve, then you'd set all three of these little pieces equal to 0. So I factored completely. First I factored out 2x. This is called a factor of it, so don't forget that part down here at the end. Okay, so all of these problems are talking about factoring, so hopefully that helps you with that stuff.